Well, the convention wraps up tonight, and it will be capped off by Trump's acceptance speech. Now, Andrew, he is live in Cleveland with more. And Andrew, the most dangerous question is, what do we expect is going to happen tonight? But I'll still throw it at you anyway.
You know, I've been asking everybody that I can ask that question today, whether they be delegates or journalists or pundits or whomever, and the short answer is really, nobody seems to know exactly what Donald Trump is going to say tonight. There is a feeling that perhaps that is by design, that we've also seen very little information leak from the Trump campaign about what topics he might get into tonight. So the thought is that by holding as much of that back and creating this aura of mystery around the speech tonight, that perhaps they can drive more eyeballs to the television sets and boost up the ratings. And as you know, and as Dominic has been telling us for a year plus, when it comes to eyeballs, that's what Trump is all about. He doesn't care if the press is good or bad. He just wants the eyeballs. Now, the delegates that I spoke with today had some interesting take on this. One of the things that they want to hear is a pitch for unity. Would we see a magnanimous Donald Trump when referencing Ted Cruz? That seems unlikely, but a call for party unity, which seems a little bit difficult given the last 24 hours. The theme for tonight's address, in the Trumpian language that he always uses, "Make America One Again." So it would seem to be a call for unity, although pretty much the primetime lineups have not really stuck to those themes throughout the course of the convention. We understand that there's a lot of call for him to attack Hillary. We expect that he's probably going to do that, which also would seem to be in conflict with the call for unity, also focusing on problems and the unexpected. Expect the unexpected. I heard that from countless numbers of people that I was talking to today. The general conclusion that I've come to is that I don't expect all that much from Donald Trump, and here's why. The bar has now been set incredibly low, given all of the difficulty that we've seen this week here in Cleveland. Really, if he can just get through the speech without another major gaffe, you might be able to declare it a victory. Obviously, get through the whole thing without any accusations of plagiarism. We understand that there are going to be a lot of focus from the campaign staff on the speech. And also, Donald Trump is probably going to be off the prompter for most of this tonight. How is he going to be able to perform? It's sort of the low information voters version of the reality show that we've been going through with the Trump campaign. Will he be entertaining and still come across as being presidential if he stays on the prompter? Other than that, all of those things seem to be in conflict with each other. Unity and being presidential while still being charismatic and still bashing Hillary Clinton and perhaps going after Ted Cruz or not. It doesn't seem like he can do everything that everybody's been suggesting to me that he might have to do or want to do. The one thing I can tell you, Rich, nobody knows at all what he's going to do. Perhaps not even Donald Trump. Rich?
Well, Andrew, and I'll bring the Tim in a second, but last segment, obviously we talked about the Cruz debacle last night, and there's two different schools of thought, and we've heard two different theories coming out. I'm curious what you're hearing. One, that because he got an advance copy and was told directly by Cruz that he would not be endorsed, in effect, Trump laid out a trap for him. He said what he did. They had people planted in the New York delegation, and as soon as he says vote your conscience, the boos went up in unison. The other is it turned into a you-know-what, and they reacted like everybody else, and then reacting in real time, and then we all know how it unfolded from there. Are you hearing that Trump knew what was going to go down and acted accordingly, or reacted like everybody else?
Actually, what I've been hearing is more of the latter than the former, and a lot of the evidence comes from Ted Cruz walking out, and this is, look, not even third or fourth hand. This is just people sort of giving me their 2 cents worth. But when Ted Cruz walked out to the podium last night, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a copy of his speech. Now, you know how many teleprompters there are available to somebody who's giving an address like that if he's staying on prompter. So clearly he was going off prompter. The speech was supposed to be something like 9 minutes, and it ended up running 22 or 23 minutes. One of the reasons why the entire session ran late last night past the 11 o'clock ending point. So my suspicion is that Ted Cruz changed things at the last minute. Then Ted Cruz may have laid a trap for Donald Trump. Here's what I'm going to talk about. Here's a copy of the speech. Oh, by the way, let me just here are a few other thoughts that perhaps the campaign hadn't had a chance to vet. At least that's the sense that I had, and some of the other people that I've been talking to, Rich.
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. And of course, we'll be checking in with Andrew throughout the evening.
With some of us on the panel.
Yes, well, doesn't mean he's right. All right, now let's get into what Trump will and should do. If you're counseling him tonight, I talked to these guys and they all blew me off, but I said, God forbid, but if he actually tries a little bit of humility, just a little bit, not that he's going to say he's not going to build a wall or that he's going to try and ban all Muslims and all the rest, but he can still say, I'm for all these things. And maybe I'm not always politically correct, but I'm going to say what I think. But sometimes we all go a little too far. That judge in Indiana, he was an American. Just because you have a Latino surname, that doesn't mean you're not an American. If he even did that, I think people would be taken aback and give him credit, maybe even more than he deserves, but to say, wow, that was a presidential move. I think that would play. Now, everybody says it's against type. He doesn't believe in apologies, and they're probably right. But I think something like that, if he can go against type tonight at all and not be a caricature, then people who are looking for a reason not to vote for Hillary might consider him.
I agree with your general statement that if he goes against his type that he's established throughout this primary campaign and at the convention, he'll be successful. But to me, his big challenge is to persuade moderate Republicans, independents, and perhaps some former Reagan Democrats that Donald Trump, understands that the world is a complex, dangerous place, not all simple yes or no, and that Donald Trump understands nuance and complexity in the world.
That much we know is not going to happen. Well, less than 24 hours ago, he says basically, you don't pay mob kit protection, you're not going to get NATO, which we'll talk about later in the program.
Okay, but that's on the merits. If he simply acknowledges that the world is a complex place and he's aware of it, that would be a
how low have we set the bar?
That would be a great start for him.
Dominic, if you're counseling him, and I can make two arguments to this one. When has he gotten the most attention and people have had buzz the most? When he's been off the prompter, he's ad-libbing. When he's on the prompter, and people all think it's so easy, right? And then you and I know it's actually not. He's tough on it, okay? And it looks stilted, it doesn't look natural.
He's horrible.
If you were counseling him, would you say, I'm going to kill you if you go off the prompter, or would you say, go with the moment?
Well, you're assuming that the teleprompter operator is going to be perfect. Oftentimes, as we know in Bill Clinton's State of the Union address, I'm sure you guys were there when he was forced to ad lib and nobody could tell that he was ad libbing. So if assuming that the teleprompter operator is able to keep up with his cadence and the claps and so on, there is no way in hell that he's going to ad lib a speech like this tonight. The stakes are too high. Folks are looking at him seriously, potentially, as the President of the United States. The only thing that I think is unpredictable and would perhaps go to what you're referring to, it would be refreshing if he didn't say crooked Hillary. Just for tonight. Tomorrow you can go back to it. But don't try and sound presidential tonight. If that's possible.
And not to ruin it for you, but already there's excerpts released that crooked Hillary will be in the speech.
Okay,
but nice try.
There you
go.
go.
All right, now, Bill, you're part of the audience that he's trying to reach tonight. You, lifelong Republican, but you have parted with your party, maybe albeit temporarily, over what we've seen this election season, in large part because of your nominee. Is there anything he can say that would get you to even reconsider him as who you'd want for your commander-in-chief?
Not at this point. I mean, no is the answer, and you're right. The answer is no. However, your vision, your fantasy there, I've had as well, and I've written on it in weeks past about if Trump would just come out and acknowledge the things that he said and go with it's never going to happen. But if he went out and said, I'm a passionate guy. I love this country. I say vulgar things. I hurt a lot of feelings. The Indiana judge, women, the rest of it, went through it. And, I say these things because I don't come out of the political world, but I really care. And if he did this kind of visceral speech and that touched his core, I think it would be really effective. He's not going to do it. But I do think he stays on teleprompter. And if he goes off teleprompter, he can start talking about his hands. He can talk about bosoms. He can talk about Putin. He can talk about anything. I mean, the guy is liable to go anywhere. So I think his team is praying. I mean, on their knee, every religious background, they're praying that this guy stays on prompter. And if he does, I think he'll read a very good speech. I think Ivanka will do a great job because she's a real pro in what she does. And I think Trump will deliver a good, rousing, populist speech, and it'll help him. He needs to save this convention. Right now, it's a mess. He needs to walk out with a win.
This is not rocket science. He has to do what got him here. He has to talk about the wall. He has to talk about the Muslim ban. He has to satisfy the base. He can't just pretend they're not in the room. But he could, with a little humor, not go into these mea culpas that you two left-wingers are scripting for him. But he could acknowledge that sometimes there's controversy, and that comes with sincerity. These are not hard things to do. But to think of him as transmogrifying himself.
Jimmy Swaggart.
And give me a break.
Well, Chris,
he shouldn't and he can't.
Yeah. I'm in between here. I think he should say, I can't change myself. I am what I am. I'm tired of political correctness. Sometimes I may go a little too far. And as the interview had me on 60 Minutes, I don't want Pence to be me. I want him to be Pence. But I'm going to be me. And sometimes I'm going to say things that my wife doesn't like me to say, and some people don't like me to say, but that's who I am.
Well, we're going to find out in about a little less than 4 hours where the Donald is going to go. But coming up next, a big story today, and God forbid it deals with substance. Trump's foreign policy all over the map and worrying world leaders and experts alike. But did the Donald just outdo himself by saying he'd essentially void the NATO treaty? We'll get into that after this. Yes.